3 years ago now, I started this YouTube channel, and it was because I was in the process of decluttering 80% of our belongings. Well, what would become 80%? I didn't know at the time that's how far we were gonna go. And then something happened. Well, hello friend, I'm Mary Beth with At What Cost, where simple living and deep faith go hand in hand. And just a disclaimer, like this is real life, friends. Like I didn't even put makeup on or brush my hair. Does anybody else wake up in the morning and feel like they did battle with a raccoon all night? I'm that person. I have it spilled on my shirt this morning for breakfast, and we're just rolling with it because quite frankly, I don't have time to like put on a pretty face for YouTube. So here we are. But before we get into the tips, I had a package that I need for an upcoming trip. It is essential, and it was supposed to be delivered yesterday, but the tracking says that someone picked it up at the post office. It wasn't my husband and I. So we got to run over to the post office and get that sorted out. This is crucial for this trip. It's crucial. Any other Midwesterners out there that say, oh, all right, let's go. Gunner, you got to get in your kennel. Good boy. All right, I'll be back. I gotta find my keys. This is the problem. I don't know where anything is. There's one of your lessons. I decluttered 80% of our house, and I still, 3 years later, don't always know where everything is. So the first lesson really is that decluttering your home, and even if you go really, really hard on the decluttering, without maintenance, and I'm talking good, consistent, like thoughtful maintenance, it's not going to last. It just isn't. The influx of things that comes into our homes is absolutely ridiculous. And it's hard for us to tell sometimes just how much comes into our homes until we have reduced and we see kind of the clean slate that our home can be and how quickly it can fill up with stuff. So I'm going to go in and talk with the postal worker and find out about this package. And I am also going to check our P.O. box because every now and then you guys send me like really fun cards and it's so exciting. So I'm going to go check that while I'm here, and I'm almost certain there's nothing but junk mail in there, but I'll be right back. So the story is that it was delivered to the house, like we just missed it. So that must be what's going on here. And then we had a card in the P.O. box. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to check my door and see if it's there in my mailbox. And then let's look at this card, and then we'll talk about some more of these lessons. Yay! Victory. Oh, hi! World's smallest sunscreen. We need to open this card first before we chat. And then I promise there are more tips coming. Oh, that is so pretty. Look at this like beautiful card with the story of the birth of Christ. Thank you, Debbie. That is so precious. Thank you. That is beautiful. I appreciate that so much. Okay, so the coffee is reheating. Let's have a seat in the office and talk a little bit more about these lessons that I have learned. Because friend, let me tell you, if you are someone who has to learn the hard way, I got you. I'm that person. I'm that person. The dog is in the other room crying because he wants to chew a bone, but he wants me to come in there and watch him chew the bone. I can't do that. We have work to do. We have work to do, friends. We already talked about the first lesson, which is that stuff comes into our homes so much faster than we realize, than we really think it does. You know, in the first go round of our decluttering, I think we accumulated a lot of things over a long period of time. And so it's a little bit more difficult to really gauge like how fast things are coming in. Once we cleared everything out, now it's been very easy to see how fast things really do come in. When we are not acting as a good gatekeeper, they just seem to come in like, I mean, it's just a ridiculous rate. This leads to lesson number 2. The more you have, the harder it is to see how much you actually have built up in your home. So you end up with piles of things, right? And so you have what looks like a piece of paper on the surface, and underneath it is just a stack of other stuff, and it could be anything. It could be anything in there. I have uncovered piles in the past that have had anything from permission slips that I forgot to sign, to bills, outlines from Sunday school, a Kindle Fire, a scarf from Valentine's Day, all topped off with a bag from the dentist that had a new toothbrush, a mini toothpaste, and some flossers in it. So there's no telling what can be in those piles. But when we see it, we don't think of all of the individual items that are in there that we have to manage. There can also become an issue of clutter blindness. Our brain needs autopilot. There is so much sensory information that's coming in. There are so many things that our brain has to remember to do without even the conscious thought of doing it. And so our brain has to go on autopilot simply to manage the amount of information that we take in. Part of that is tuning out things that we don't need. If it's not an immediate threat, we don't need it. We're not going to be looking for it. And so things just tend to blend into the background. I think about it this way sometimes. They were rerouting actually a road. They were taking 2 different roads and intersecting them into one. It was a whole new traffic pattern. And along some of those areas were houses, and they needed several of the properties to be just completely demolished so that they could put the road through there. But there were some properties that they really needed just so that they could have a right of way. Initially, you were just painfully aware of those homes because they would set up that yellow or orange construction mesh and like the erosion barriers, and it's right next to the road, and there's construction everywhere and everything's new. And you notice those houses because I think most people see it and think, wow, they just lost their entire front yard. That house is just painfully obvious. And over time, as the landscape of that area changes and the frequency at which you drive through that and see the area like it is, as that ramps up in frequency, the surrounding elements really just don't stand out that much anymore. You don't really think anymore about how close that house is to the road. It's like that in our homes. The stuff comes in, it piles up. My desk is embarrassing. And the things that I have piled up on this top tier of my desk, they have been here so long. And you may be asking yourself, if you sit there every day, Mary Beth, why have you not gone through these piles? Well, because of life. Life happens. And even in the midst of the overwhelm, even the simplest of tasks, like throwing away papers that we don't need anymore, become difficult. They get in the way of what feels like the priority, right? And so it's very easy for us to let go of this regular, consistent maintenance. Just having a difficult time actually physically seeing the clutter in our home leads to yet another issue. And this is yet another lesson that I have learned. The harder it is to see those things, the harder it is to get rid of them because you don't see them. You don't really even know what's causing the overwhelm and the frustration. You may get glimpses of it. I certainly do. My kitchen seems to just blow up overnight every night. I feel like I'm chasing the wind most of the time. And the funny thing is, I said that exact phrase to my husband, and probably to my therapist for that matter, about 4 years ago, when I felt like all I did was chase the wind. And so not being able to see the clutter makes it more difficult to get rid of. You don't actually realize what's causing all of the overwhelm. We were watching a YouTube video last night about the molasses flood in Boston. I know, random and weird things that I watch on the internet. The molasses flood, I can't quite remember when it was, if it was the 20s or the 30s, but anyway, they build this huge tank and they start filling it with molasses, and slowly it starts to seep out. And then they paint over it to keep it from being noticed that the molasses is seeping out. And then one rivet pops, and then another rivet pops. And then all of a sudden there is molasses all over Boston, and it's terrible. I had no idea, and I grew up in New England, and I had no idea that this happened. If you get a minute, research it. It is crazy what happened, okay, with molasses. But over time, you start to get used to the pressure and things start leaking out, and you don't really know what to do about it until the rivets start popping off, and then you are in full-blown anxiety and overwhelm. What's wrong, Gunny? What's wrong, Gunner? I know. You want me to watch you chew your bone. Come here. Come give me a hug. Come give me a hug. Oh, I know. I'm so sorry. I can't watch you chew your bone. Your daddy's home though now. He can maybe watch you chew your bone. I know. It's special. It's special for Mama watch you chew your bone. You good boy. You bring it in here and I'll watch you chew it in here. Now I lost my train of thought. See, this is how I end up not getting anything done during the day. Yes. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, what's the solution, Mary Beth? Like, we know why it's hard. How do we resolve this? There are a lot of processes out there to actually do this. A lot of people will talk about the visibility rule. Dana K. White really popularized that idea of starting in the spaces that are the most visible for you. You know, you've got the Marie Kondo, where you just take individual items and assess how much joy they bring you. Neither of those practices really helped me in dealing with this kind of like chasing the wind issue. And so I started with my pain points. So I started with the things that were most time consuming. In being so time consuming, they were taking up valuable time and real estate to do other things that I needed to do. So first I did our kids' clothes. Then I think I moved on to toys next. And then I moved on to our kitchen. So this is where the maintenance comes into play, because even though I reduced down the number of clothing items our children have, they change sizes. They need new things. They have school dress up days. My goodness, at the number of dress up days that they have and the things that they need for it. And I use the word need very loosely. But they keep having things come in. Their wardrobes change over time. And so if I'm not acting as a good gatekeeper, they can have 27 t-shirts to wear in a week. And I sometimes have to wash the clean ones because they have taken them off, put them in the hamper, and we just get overrun with laundry again. And the same way with dishes. We have little special cups that have come in that somebody has made and put their name on it, and it's really cute and I love it and it's adorable, but it just increases the number of things that we end up having. And the same goes for toys or other just hobby items, activities. We start with one small little Latchmate container of Legos, and now, because they really enjoy Legos, they keep getting Lego sets for their birthdays and Christmas, and we put them together, and then they're sitting around, and it just builds up the overall inventory in our home and ultimately the level of overwhelm. And so much of the maintenance phase is about mindfully and diligently and consistently taking the things that you are not using, that you don't need, that you don't find to be valuable in your everyday life out of your home. This is where I have failed immensely. I have not been a good gatekeeper. I have not done good maintenance. And I pretty well just let everything go. Now, we have had quite a bit of family crisis that contributes to things greatly. I have done a couple of videos on that I will link in the description below about crisis and how we respond to that and what that can do with not just to our faith, but to our actual day-to-day life and the physical items in our home. But I am very much feeling like I'm back at the foot of the mountain, and I am going to have to go back up and probably down and back up again, trying to get things straightened back out. Now, why do I have the tiniest bottle of sunscreen ever? Well, that is because the other solution that I have discovered is that I just need to leave this house. I just gotta go. I need a break. I'm tapping out, and I'm just gonna go on vacation. That's not entirely the whole story, but I am gonna tell you more about that in the next video. You knew I was gonna do it. You knew I was gonna leave you on a cliffhanger. It's okay. It's gonna be fun. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. And you may see some familiar people. I'm just saying what I'm saying.